So our next presenter is Joseph Kizis, who's the director and president at Equity Metals.
Okay, well, thank you, Taylor, and thanks to Red Cloud for sponsoring this event. We're going to talk about Equity Metals. This is one of our companies within the Mannix group of companies, and it's a company that came to us originally named New Nadina. They had a number of projects, but the one that caught our attention was in British Columbia. It's a high-grade polymetallic epithermal vein that they were trying to put into production with a very small resource. The market really didn't like that idea, and so they were having difficulty in raising money. They came to us, and one of the engineers that had worked with us was on their board and was involved with our Homestake Ridge project in the Golden Triangle. He thought there might be some similarities there and thought we might be able to apply some of our techniques that were successful there. That was a property that we discovered over just about 1 million ounces of gold and 25 million ounces of silver. We took a look at it and thought that was probably a good analogy. And so I will talk about the exploration possibilities because we thought that is probably where the value could be added for the shareholders. So obviously be making some forward-looking statements in that regard. So just a little bit about the company. When we took over, New Nadina was trading at about 5 cents. We did a financing at 8 cents and had a pretty good success with our initial drilling programs. We've now backed off to something in the, well, as of this morning, something like 8.5 cents. But using 7 cents, which is pretty close to our low, we have a market cap of about $7 million Canadian. We've just completed a pretty short program. We're still waiting for results of 3 holes. Those are pretty specific to some targets that we were developing so that when we permit or do some modifications of our permit, we'd have some guidance there. That leaves us with about $800,000 in the treasury right now. So a lot of the shareholders are retail. A lot of those are holdovers from the New Nadina company as well. So let me just talk about who we are right now. Larry Page is the chairman and director, been involved with a number of discoveries. He's a securities lawyer. I'm a geologist. Rob McDonald is primarily doing the work on our Silver Queen project, and he's our VP of exploration. Rob and I, and really the rest of the team, worked with Homestake Resources to develop that resource in the Golden Triangle. Then there are other geologists and engineering people, lawyers, accounting, that sort of thing. So let's talk about the projects. The New Nadina had 4 different kind of project areas. There's some diamond projects in the Northwest Territories. They all have diamond-bearing kimberlites. We're doing a little bit of work on that, but that's not really our main focus. Interestingly, they have a silica project in Saskatchewan. This one's pretty interesting because it's pretty high purity silica, which may be appropriate for converting to silicon, which is being investigated as an additive to lithium batteries to greatly increase the charge and the timing between charging of lithium batteries for the EV sort of revolution that's underway. They previously had about half of the northern part of the Greenwood district. They've sold that to another company, retaining a 1% royalty, and that 1% royalty includes the historic Phoenix mine, which produced about 500 million pounds of copper and 1 million ounces of gold. But really what drove our attention and the reason for taking over the project was the Silver Queen project. And the company New Nadina had just completed a resource. It was about 440,000 ounces of gold equivalent. But what caught our attention was the resource grade. It's polymetallic, so if you convert to gold equivalent, pretty darn good grades. We saw that there were a number of targets that hadn't been drilled, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. But in particular, the Camp Vein was a property or a part of the property that we focused our attention on. We had some great silver numbers, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes. But our idea was that a project like this is probably not going to be of interest to the market or potential, acquisition or partner until you get over 1 million ounces. And so that's sort of our near-term goal. So let's take a look at the project here. It's located in what's called the Skeena Arch, western part of British Columbia, about midway up. A lot of porphyries in this area. And the veins that we looked at, it's pretty obvious that this is what we'd call an intermediate sulfidation vein system. These are associated with the tops of porphyry systems, and they can be quite rich, quite a long amount of strike length and dip length. So, really good exploration potential. Unlike the Golden Triangle, which has some real problems from infrastructure, this area is great from an infrastructure standpoint. I'll show a little bit more about that. The first mining happened very small scale in about 1912. There have been intermittent activity over the years since then. The Hunt brothers had it for a time in one of their companies. They produced about 9 kilometers of underground development work where they drilled out one of the veins, pretty much the number 3 vein, and that's where most of the high-grade resource that New Nadina had outlined in 2019 had been found. We focused most of our work. We did a little bit of confirmation drilling on that vein, but mostly we focused our work on what's called the camp vein. There had been some historic drilling there. It was pretty potty is what they thought. As it turns out, they were looking at the wrong orientations, and we're seeing a lot more continuity in the vein system. There was some initial metallurgy. We're currently doing a significant amount of new metallurgy, particularly with the high silver zone that we've identified at this point. So we've now completed 78 holes, about 25, almost 26,000 meters of drilling since we took over. Basically, we took over management of the company in October of 2019 and started drilling in 2020. So a little bit more about the logistics, because we've got grades that are similar to what you see in the Golden Triangle, but the logistics are a big change. And having done an awful lot of helicopter camp work, this is really quite a joy. So we do have a camp on the project. It's the stark blue area here. The town of Houston is located here as a paved road. Then there's a good gravel road down to the Huckleberry mine, which Imperial Metals, this is a porphyry copper mine in central BC, a lot of other groups around the area. So these are porphyry coppers where erosion is deep enough to expose the copper porphyries in several areas, the Buck, Silver Queen, and also the Equity silver deposit. These are less eroded areas, and we're in the vein zone above porphyry systems. So we're here in the central part of Western British Columbia, just east of the high Coast Range. That means we're in the snow shadow there. So unlike the Golden Triangle, where we can have 10 meters of snow, we rarely have more than 1 meter of snow. So we've actually drilled through both of the past 2 winters. So it gives us a great, much expanded field season. You can see the entrance to our camp right here. You can drive almost everywhere. A lot of it's rolling hills. Here's one of our drills from a year or so ago. The rolling hills here, you can see there's a lot of grassland in there. So even though there are 20 veins that have been identified on the property, there's a lot of the area that's covered by a pretty thin veneer of soil. So we think there's some great exploration potential. This is what we started out with the 2019 resource. It's not, you convert all this stuff considering not only the price, but the expected recoveries. You get a gold equivalent grade that's pretty impressive. If you look at silver equivalent, again, pretty impressive. So we thought it's too small really right now, but it's a great starting position. So what does that mean? So this is where that starting position is as far as the resource. You can see the small circles here with the little tails. Those are the drill holes that were historically drilled. Our drill holes are here shown in the blue. You can see the veins in red, and you can see there's some dominant orientations, northwest and east-west. There were some drill holes in this area on the camp vein. They assumed it was associated with these north trending structures, and there is in fact a northwest trending structure. But what we've identified is that this mineralization is associated with east-west trending structures. Now, this is a pretty interesting system here because most porphyry systems are well zoned, and we see that here. Basically, everything's tilted a little bit to the west, so we're looking at almost like looking down on a cross section here in this map view. So in the deeper drilling, New Nadina had drilled out a copper porphyry here, pretty typical of BC projects, 0.1 to 0.5% copper, something like that, over very thick intervals. Significant moly associated with it. Most of these veins in this area here are associated with gold, some spiky silver, but quite a bit of copper as well. And then getting more outboard from that, the very strong silver bias here of the camp vein system. So we'll take a little bit of a closer look at this area here. And whoops, sorry here. Spastic. Okay, there we go. So our 10th hole, we were drilling some offset mineralization here. I thought maybe there was some stratigraphic control. So we offset about a 10 kilo silver intercept, and we intersected this vein zone here. This is about 0.3 meters, 56,000 grams per ton silver. All that reddish stuff in there is ruby silver. It was within a 4.4 meter zone that still runs, pretty high, obviously, uptick by the high silver, but there were several zones around this that ran over a kilo. So this was something that was of concern to us. Yes, there are a lot of thin intervals of very high grade. Somewhat unexpectedly, a lot of these high grades actually line up quite nicely when you look at them in the proper orientation. So there is a bit of a halo around it that'll make the kind of the mineable grade, but this is really what's carrying a lot of this mineralization. It are these extremely high grade veins along them. So we step back a little bit more. What we see is the number 3 vein where the original resource is, a nice resource here that we're undertaking an independent 43-101 resource that's being updated right now. We expect it to be done sometime early in the third quarter of this year. So that's underway right now. We have 3 holes still in this area, one off to see about a western extension of this mineralization, and a few in a couple of holes in this area that intersect some of the structures deeper than we expected. So we're still waiting for those results to come through. So, kind of the idea, we start out with a high grade resource. We thought there's some real strong opportunities for expansion. We've now shown that with several drilling episodes. Again, I think we're going to be well along our way for the target of something over 1 million ounces to generate a lot more excitement and hopefully a lot higher market value for the company. There are other assets in the company like the diamonds, excuse me, and the silica. We have some money in the till here, $800,000 to kickstart a program starting in the fall, and we've done this before in the Golden Triangle and within the company on a number of other successful exploration development programs with the Mannix Group. And that pretty much kind of summarizes it, and happy to turn it over to questions at the end.
Thank you very much, Joseph.